Welcome to this edition of Crystals of Experience this Wednesday. The topic for today is Teach Them Young. There is a famous anecdote of a bloodhound, a tame bloodhound, used to terrorize a huge locality. Any outsider, unknown person would be brought down ferociously like one of those mastiffs in the Hound of the Baskervilles of Sherlock Holmes fame. That bloodhound was had a range of a house which was very big, which belonged to a major, and he was very strict on who that people who had no business to be in that locality should not be around, and his lieutenant, the mastiff, ensured that. But with the passage of time, the mastiff grew old, but it still held terror over the entire area. Any new newspaper boy would get the works. So would any vendor who was passing by genuinely doing his work. In fact, that mastiff had a very odd way that odd way as far as the newspaper was concerned. Every day at the appointed time, the newspaper man who was there in that giving the newspaper to that house for so many years would hand it over properly to the mastiff, and the mastiff without a sound would take it, turn round, push the gate, close the gate again, and run into the drawing room where his royal master was sitting on a huge chair and place it obediently at the master's feet. The dog would then look up expectantly, not that the teary eyed bloodhound which I was talking about so now, but a little angel of a pup. The master would look at it indulgently, tap it a couple of times, and then give 3-4 mighty whacks with the newspaper. Once the mighty whacks landed on the dog gave its usual whelp of not a blood curdling sound, but a whelp of a young pup, and ran off to its other duties. This happened for such a long time, and many people who used to visit the house would wonder that when they came into the house, they were terrorized by this bloodhound, and when they came and spoke to its master, the major, they found that it was more of a pup than anything. The major, in his regal way, explained to them that when this came so many years ago, he got it when he was in the United Nations task force, and he brought this bloodhound home. From that day, he trained it in a manner that it knew only the only army way of severe obedience. He would whack the bloodhound with his newspaper to give it all the instruction it had to understand, and beyond that, implicit obedience was what it worked with. And there was no question of it spoiling the place, and everything was regulated in a manner perfect by a small boy who would just ensure that the mastiff had its place to do whatever it had to do or where it had to eat, everything in a manner befitting the master. Of all the time which I met him when the major was much older and far more affable, he said that always teach them young. You have kids, let them get up early in the morning. If they have kids, there are no sleepy holidays. There's always a time when he has to be well dressed. There should be a little regimentation. It must be early morning, short or long walks. If he's a sportsman, it should be runs. And if he's into yoga, the yoga must happen 365 days in a year. There is no reason. We do our ablutions, he said, 365 days in a year, and if something is wrong, we have to call the doctor. In the same manner, we have to ensure that the children follow the same routine. They have to be there at the time for the studies. They should ensure that what they study is more than what was supposed to have it done the day before. Holidays are there where you can really enjoy, have a sensible hobby, and work on that. I could understand that his two sons both were brigadier generals, and and its equivalent in the army and the air force. He was basically a very soft-hearted person. His wife, even more so. She was the person who looked after the widows of the troops who laid down the lives for the country. That was his background, and that is the way he worked with his people. But to ensure that all this happened, he still proclaimed that without regimentation, without discipline, without the manner in which you train your kids, they will become something which you did not expect, and you will be taken by surprise. It was a great lesson for me, and I could understand and appreciate because he followed it and he made his children follow the same. There was plenty of fun and laughter in the house. There were wonderful meals, delightful meals, delightful get togethers, delightful expeditions, but each one had a purpose and each one taught the children